My wife, Sherry, had convinced herself that I was completely oblivious to her actions. Perhaps she assumed I was too naive to recognize the truth or lacked the perceptiveness to notice the gradual shift in her behavior. She was under the impression that I would passively accept her deception, allowing her to carry on her secret affair with her colleague Todd without interference. However, what Sherry failed to realize was that my suspicions had been growing for quite some time. I had observed changes in her demeanor and habits, unmistakable indicators of infidelity that she mistakenly believed had gone unnoticed. There were several warning signs that caught my attention. Sherry began staying late at work more frequently, often offering vague excuses that lacked credibility. Her wardrobe underwent a noticeable transformation, with the sudden addition of more provocative and stylish clothing. She exuded a newfound confidence, an assertiveness that hadn't been there before, and our intimacy had dwindled significantly. These changes, taken individually, might not have raised alarm bells, but collectively, they painted a clear picture of someone emotionally invested elsewhere. Our shared hobbies, once a cornerstone of our bond, fell by the wayside. I could feel my connection to her slipping away, but every attempt I made to discuss my concerns was met with denial and dismissal. She would insist that I was being paranoid, accusing me of jealousy and possessiveness rather than addressing the real issue at hand. Left with no other option, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I hired a private investigator, Jake Sloan, to uncover the truth. From the very beginning of our marriage, I had made it clear that infidelity was a line I would never tolerate. Throughout our decade together, Sherry had repeatedly reassured me of her unwavering loyalty, making this betrayal all the more painful. Sitting in Sloan's office, listening to his findings, I experienced a tumult of emotions, relief, dread, anger, and heartbreak all at once. Sloan confirmed that Sherry and Todd's relationship had not yet turned physical, but their emotional connection was undeniable. While a part of me felt momentarily relieved that she hadn't crossed that particular line, it was a fleeting comfort. Emotional infidelity, in my eyes, was just as devastating as a physical betrayal. The investigator provided evidence of their growing closeness. Day after day, they dined together exclusively, separating themselves from their colleagues. They exchanged affectionate gestures, held hands, sat in close proximity, and even embraced. Photographs depicted them locked in intimate embraces, and in some instances, sharing kisses. It was undeniable. Sherry had given her heart to Todd, even if she had not yet given him her body. Rage coursed through me as I sifted through the damning evidence. They not only spent their lunch breaks together, but frequently extended their work hours without legitimate reasons. It became evident that they were actively avoiding their respective spouses, seeking every opportunity to monopolize each other's time. Sloan delved even deeper, revealing that he had managed to access Sherry's private emails and messages. Though I knew this method was legally questionable and unusable in divorce proceedings, the implications of what he uncovered were impossible to ignore. In our state, proving adultery for divorce was a complicated process, but a no-fault divorce required no such evidence. My goal wasn't legal revenge. I simply wanted the truth. Sloan refused to provide me with copies of the messages or let me read them directly, but he summarized their contents. He assured me that, despite everything, Sherry had never spoken ill of me. Even when Todd attempted to belittle me, she refused to join in, which, in a twisted way, provided some small comfort. Nevertheless, their exchanges were undeniably romantic. While neither had explicitly professed love for the other, their conversations were deeply personal, bordering on explicit. Todd even shared photos of his girlfriend with Sherry, an odd move that she appeared to appreciate. However, as far as Sloan could tell, Sherry had not reciprocated by sending any explicit images of her own, at least not yet. As I sat in Sloan's office, contemplating my next move, he delivered the most devastating revelation yet. Todd's wife was planning to visit her mother in the countryside for 3 days. This presented Todd and Sherry with a golden opportunity to take their affair to the next level. The only complication in their plan was me. They struggled to find a way to spend the night together, while I remained in the picture. Since I had no intention of leaving town, their predicament seemed insurmountable, yet they were actively devising ways to circumvent it. One possibility they considered was for Sherry to fabricate a story about going on a weekend trip with her girlfriends. However, she hesitated, fearing that one of her friends might inadvertently expose a lie. Unwilling to involve others in her deception, she discarded that plan. Instead, they explored a far more insidious idea, one that involved manipulating circumstances to force me out of the city. The bitter memory of Sherry's recent suggestion resurfaced in my mind. She had proposed organizing a golf trip with my friends, a seemingly innocent idea. However, I had declined without much thought, simply because I had no real interest in golf. At the time, it seemed like a trivial matter, but now, in hindsight, I realized it was part of a larger scheme. In the end, she and Todd had decided on a different approach, one that relied less on subterfuge and more on calculated honesty, though their version of honesty was nothing more than manipulation in disguise. Todd was certain that, given enough time, I would become the kind of husband who, out of desperation or complacency, would learn to accept their affair. He had managed to convince Sherry that their illicit relationship would somehow improve our marriage, including our intimacy. He assured her that if she simply informed me of her intentions rather than sneaking around, I would have no choice but to accept the situation begrudgingly. Todd, in his arrogance, had clearly misjudged me. He had no real understanding of the man I was. Yet, what truly unsettled me was not Todd's misplaced confidence, but the fact that Sherry had allowed herself to be so thoroughly manipulated. How could she believe for even a second that I would tolerate such betrayal? Had she forgotten who I was, or had she merely chosen to ignore the truth? If she truly thought I would go along with this, then perhaps Sloane was right. Perhaps she was mentally unstable. It was a thought I had resisted, but with each revelation, I found myself reluctantly agreeing with his assessment. That evening, as I drove home, I asked Sloane to continue monitoring Sherry's messages. If she and Todd had more plans in motion, I needed to know. True to his word, Sloane contacted me on Friday. He had news. Sherry was planning to talk to me the following Monday, after work. That was when she intended to make her grand declaration, the announcement of her decision to go on a date with Todd the previous Friday night. Their plans were already set: a romantic dinner, dancing, and an overnight stay at a hotel. And by Saturday morning, Sherry would return to me as if nothing had happened. She and Todd had rehearsed this conversation meticulously, attempting to prepare for every possible reaction I might have. They expected anger, frustration, perhaps even a moment of silent shock, but they were confident that Sherry could placate me. She planned to reassure me that it was just a one-time occurrence, a fleeting indulgence that would have no bearing on our marriage. But I knew better. This was not an isolated incident. It was a beginning of something much darker. As if the betrayal itself weren't enough, she intended to manipulate me further by presenting it as an opportunity for growth in our marriage, a way to bring us closer, to rekindle something that had been lost. And as a final insult, she had even planned to offer herself to me afterward, as if, after months of intimacy being withheld, I would eagerly accept such a pathetic consolation prize. The sheer audacity of their calculations disgusted me. Sherry and Todd had smugly referred to this meeting as an intervention, as though they were offering me a path to enlightenment rather than an ultimatum wrapped in deceit. But I had only 48 hours to prepare, and one thing was certain. This so-called intervention would not unfold the way they envisioned. Over the weekend, I analyzed every possible scenario, searching for a way to salvage our marriage. Yet, at the same time, I wrestled with an even more profound question. Did I even want to save it? My mind was clouded with uncertainty as I reflected on the love we once shared. In the beginning, our marriage had been filled with joy, passion, and an unbreakable bond. We had been partners in every sense of the word, navigating life together, sharing dreams, desires, and ambitions. Sherry had been more than my wife. She had been my closest confidant and my most passionate lover. But over time, that love had faded into something unrecognizable. Perhaps it was a natural progression of life, where nothing remains permanent. Or maybe my expectations of marriage had been too idealistic, too deeply rooted in outdated notions of commitment and fidelity. I had always believed that marriage meant standing together, united against the world. But now, I found myself questioning everything. Both Sherry and I had experienced failed marriages in the past, and that realization haunted me. Was the issue with us as individuals, or was it with the very institution of marriage itself? Was it truly realistic to expect love to remain unchanged in a world dominated by fleeting attention spans, digital distractions, and the relentless pursuit of instant gratification? Maybe marriage, like dinosaurs and CDs, was simply a relic of the past, an outdated construct that no longer held relevance in modern society. For a fleeting moment, I even considered the possibility of letting Sherry be with Todd if that was what she truly wanted. Maybe that was the only way forward, to let go and allow her to find whatever fleeting happiness she sought. But then reality struck me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't going to let her take advantage of me. My feelings for her may have faded, but my self-respect remained intact. I refused to be manipulated. I refused to be humiliated. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I would confront the situation head-on. I would stand my ground. I would take control of the narrative. Shortly after lunch, my phone rang. It was Sherry. "Hi, Sherry." I answered cautiously, my voice carefully measured. "Is everything all right? You rarely call me at work these days. I hope nothing's wrong." "Hi, honey," she responded sweetly, her tone light, almost playful. Honey. The word felt like acid on my skin. Had she used the same term of endearment for Todd? Did she think she could speak to me as if nothing had changed? If it's nothing special, she began lightly, but I already knew. This was it, the moment they had planned. But what they didn't know was that I had plans of my own.